ECOWAS elects Ghana's Nana Akufo-Addo as the bloc's new chairman as leaders meet for the first time amid COVID-19. Gambia's Justice Ministry to table a bill on the draft constitution to the lawmakers as the country plans for a referendum. Vendors cancel major sit-down strike across markets in the Gambia after brief meeting with government. This and more coming on your way on The World Today. Thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante, and now the news in detail. Now, Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo is the new chairman of the West African Head of State Regional Bloc, ECOWAS. He was elected as head of the organization during the 57th ordinary session in Niamey, replacing outgoing chairman Mohamed Issoufou of Niger. Fatmata Fati has more details of that in this report.
ECOWAS has elected Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo as the bloc's new chairman at the end of the 57th ordinary session in Niamey, the capital of Niger. He replaces President Mahamadou Issoufou of Niger. Leaders met in person for the first time since the coronavirus outbreak in West Africa to discuss political, economic, and health issues affecting the sub-region. At the start of the meeting, ECOWAS leaders appealed for a swift transition to civilian rule in Mali following the August 18th military coup. The summit considered reports from the Mediation and Security Council's 44th ordinary session and 84th ordinary session of the Council of Ministers, which preceded Monday's summit. Leaders deliberated on a special report on COVID-19 presented by Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, who was appointed on April 23rd as ECOWAS champion on the fight against coronavirus. ECOWAS leaders also discussed the single currency initiative. The ECOWAS initiated in January 2020 as the French-speaking countries said they will drop the CFA, which has been in use since 1945. The ECO has not gained popularity in some member states. For iAfrica News, Fatmata Fati.
Well, now joining us on the line from New Jersey is in the United States is Josh Corzo, PhD and Assistant Professor of Security Studies. Well, Professor, many thanks for joining us. Now, ECOWAS has renewed their call for a quick transition to a civilian rule in Mali. Now, what do you think? What did you make of this latest push from the regional bloc?
Mr. Conte, thank you for having me today. I personally do not think that a call by the ECOWAS leaders for a swift transition is actually in the interest of the Malian people. What I believe should be in the interest of the Malian people is a thoughtful process, a process where the Malian society first determines an agenda for a transition and then determines how long that transition will take. And then third, decide who is more suited to lead the transition. So starting by calling for a quick, swift transition to me is totally biased and is not in the interest of the Malian people. And again, in my view, the agenda for the transition should be all about designing and putting in place a new system of governance because we are here today in Mali because 8 years ago when the coup happened, all that mattered was a quick transition to the civilian control government. And that should not be the sole purpose of a transition. Therefore, I'm hoping that the Malian society will understand the importance of this and take this opportunity to take the destiny in their own hands.
Now,
so
Professor,
yes,
I'm sorry to interject here, but as talks for a transition continue in Mali between the junta and the opposition parties, now, are both parties likely to reach a negotiation solution to a smooth and peaceful transition?
I am hoping that the junta will find a common ground, not just with the opposition, but also with all the different segments represented in Mali, and not just even just the national actors, but all the international actors with interest. So I can only hope, because this is not a political problem. It is more than just politics. This is a whole of society problem, and they should make everything possible to reach an agreement with the insurgency groups, the opposition parties, the former regime leaders, the civil society, different segments of the international community represented in Mali. So this is a whole of society approach that is needed in Mali.
Well, just lastly, Professor, do you think the military will heed to the calls by ECOWAS and other outside groups to return power to the civilian, or are they likely to see out their own military transition?
This is a good question. Like in every situation where you have a coup, there is a tendency that those who perpetrate the coup will tend to remain in power. That's something that the Malian society should worry about. However, I'm calling for them to be vigilant, and I don't think that the current environment will provide incentives for the junta to want to remain in power. But that does not also mean that we should just, switch to a civilian government and not think hard and harder about what is the core issue at stake here. So I don't personally think that in the current environment, the junta will, be able to succeed in remaining in power. You never know what people, want to do, but I believe that the Malian society should be vigilant and put forward a clear desire to have a transition that is a well-thought process, and make sure that nobody hijack this, this moment for the Malian people.
All right, Professor Kodjo, once again, many thanks for speaking to us.
My pleasure.
All right. That was Professor Kodjo from the University of New Jersey in the United States, speaking to us live. Now to Ethiopia, where the new airport terminal worth $5 billion has been unveiled in the country. The country has succeeded in the aviation infrastructure expansion, which is one of the pillars of Ethiopia Airlines Vision 2025. As passenger volumes recover, the stylish Addis Ababa duty-free is likely to generate very high average transactions. With more emphasis on the biosecurity and biosafety, the terminal's facilities include 60 check-in counters and increased number of immigration ejects. The terminal is the first in the world to be concluded since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's more details of that in this report.
This is it, the state-of-the-art new Ethiopian Airlines passenger terminal, and it's a result of 3 years of expansion work. Ethiopian Airlines says this modern terminal, with a capacity of serving 22 million passengers per annum, answers many customers' questions, including comfort and convenience.
This is achieved through the increased area of some 16,000 area for Terminal 1, 86,000 square meters of space for Terminal 2, and a brand new VIP terminal with about 6,000 square meters of space.
The new Ethiopian Airlines airport also aims to boost passenger confidence amid the uncertainty caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And so, biosafety and biosecurity features have been highly emphasized in the airport's daily operations.
The airport is now regularly cleaned and disinfected. We have installed very recent and latest thermal scanners to control temperature of passengers, and also we have sanitizers at almost every corner, so that passengers will feel a little bit comfortable to clean up themselves.
Passengers who are among the first to access the new terminal already recognize the value it will add in their travel experience.
There were a lot of places to think about where to go. You need to ask someone to show you the correct directions. but it pretty looks organized with all the demarcations and the blue lines. So you see where the migration is, where the check-in is, and then you just follow. I think it is a really good one.
It looks fantastic. Services are good, quite impressive, and I look forward to continue using Ethiopian Airlines.
Analysts say that the commissioning of this modern airport will boost passenger numbers and enhance service delivery of Ethiopian Airlines. Ethiopian Airlines has paid $300 million to see the completion of its newest airport. And through building more state-of-the-art airports across the country, ET wants to grow even bigger and widen its flight destinations too. Ethiopia's flag carrier is the #1 airline in the African continent and one of the front-runner airlines of the world.
And from that report there in Ethiopia, we come back home because the Gambia Markets Union planned strike has been temporarily suspended after a meeting with the government officials last Friday. Last week, vendors in markets in the Gambia planned a sit-down strike on Monday against COVID-19 regulations that limits operating hours for food and non-food item sellers. Details of that in this report. On Friday, government officials and market union leaders had a meeting in which an agreement was reached to cancel the planned protest. Dudunjai, a member of the market union committee, told iAfrica TV on Monday that they are waiting to hear from the Minister of Interior after the weekend meeting.
Demba mom alhamdulillah luñ espegon moy ne mit Interior Minister muy Sonko.
We had promising talks with Interior Minister Usman Sonko yesterday after he visited us here at the market. Our expectation were to meet with him, and thank God our discussion went well. He promised to get back to us after the meeting with executives on Monday.
Mr. Njai said the committee are resolute in their decision despite assurances from the Minister of a breakthrough. He outlined their commitment to fight for the interests of their members but hopes there would be a positive outcome in today's meeting.
Expect nañ ko in a sense ne ñun comme ministre bi mom mo bay soxlam.
Our expectations are very positive, considering the minister left all he was doing to visit us here at the market to discuss with us. That shows he is a good and responsible leader. He assured us that he will amicably deal with the matter and come back with positive message for us. But we also inform him of our intent to go ahead with our plans if our demands are not met, as we cannot afford to fail the people behind us. We ask them to issue a statement to inform the public of our discussion as we await the outcome of their meeting.
The Ministerial Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic under the leadership of the Vice President, Dr. Aïssata Touré, are expected to sit over the matter for an appropriate response to the market leaders' demands. The Gambia government said its COVID-19 regulations are meant to curb the spread of the virus, but market vendors argue that the rules cripple businesses and shut down income. And from the report there, of course, next we head to matters of the UN because the United Nations on Monday marked International Day of Clean Air. Globally, 9 out of every 10 people breathed on clean air, according to UN Secretary General. Ibrahim Sanko has more details of that in this report.
Air pollution causes an estimated 7 million premature deaths every year, predominantly in low and middle income countries. The United Nations said on Monday as the world marks International Day of Clean Air. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said there should be an awareness campaign on the effect of air pollution due to its connectivity with COVID-19.
Air pollution contributes to heart disease, strokes, lung cancer, and other respiratory diseases. It causes an estimated 7 million premature deaths every year, predominantly in low and middle income countries. Air pollution also threatens the economy, food security, and the environment. As we recover from the coronavirus pandemic, the world needs to pay far greater attention to air pollution, which also increases the risks associated with COVID-19. We must also urgently address the deeper threat of climate change. Limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees will help reduce air pollution, death, and disease. This year's lockdowns have caused emissions to fall dramatically, provided a glimpse of cleaner air in many cities. But emissions are already rising again, in some places surpassing pre-COVID levels.
Antonio Guterres also urged governments all over the world to use post-COVID-19 financial relief packages to support the transition to health and sustainable jobs.
I call on governments still providing finance for fossil fuel-related projects in developing countries to shift that support towards clean energy and sustainable transport. And I urge all countries to use post-COVID recovery packages to support the transition to healthy and sustainable jobs.
In 2019, the UN General Assembly set aside September 7 as International Day of Clean Air. The day recognizes the importance of clean air and the threat of air pollution on human health and ecosystem, particularly its disproportionate impact on women, children, and older persons. Reporting for Africa TV, I am Ibrahima Kebi Sonko.
The world today marks International Day of Clean Air. And from that report there, as you heard by Ibrahim Sonko, we come back home because Gambia's Justice Minister is expected to do the first reading of the country's new draft constitution on the 14th of September during the third ordinary sessions of the National Assembly in the 2020 legislative year. Juldenja Suare has more details of that in this report.
Lawmakers are gearing up for the third ordinary session of the National Assembly in the 2020 legislative year on Monday, beginning with the matters of the country's new draft constitution. The first reading of the bill will be done by the Minister of Justice, according to Standing Order 65 of the National Assembly. Parliamentarians will debate on general merits and principles of the bill on September 15, after the second reading by the Minister of Justice. The bill is expected to be taken to a committee stage, which will take months, but it is likely that the third reading of the draft constitution will be done during the fourth ordinary session of the National Assembly in the 2020 legislative year. It could be recalled that the government of the Gambia gazetted the country's draft constitution in May, ahead of the much-anticipated referendum to bring about a third republic of the West African state. The draft constitution was submitted to the presidency by the Constitutional Review Commission earlier this year for consideration and passage to the country's lawmaking body. From the National Assembly, the new constitution will go through a referendum and when adopted, will usher in a third republic. For iAfrica News, I am Juldenja Suare.
Sessions at the National Assembly in Banjul set to resume next week. That's the 14th of September to be precise. And with that report there by Juldenja Suare, we will now take a break and come back shortly with the remaining of the story. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on iAfrica TV. And now to the rest of the stories. Now, the Gambia recorded 46 new COVID-19 cases on Sunday, taking the total number of COVID-19 cases in the country to 3,197. Now, the ages of the new cases are between 0 and 67 years. There are currently 1,773 active cases, according to the Ministry of Health. With 9 new recoveries, the total number of people who have recovered from the virus is now 1,324. No one has been newly taken into quarantine and no new discharges were made. The country currently has 129 people in quarantine. Meanwhile, the number of COVID-19 deaths remains 99. And from that development of the COVID-19 situation in the Gambia, next, the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMS, has distributed 500 solar power radio sets in the local communities in Yobawo, South Sudan, to ease home learning during the coronavirus pandemic. Fatima Fati again has more details of that in this report.
Direct speech to indirect speech.
Children in South Sudan can attend school lessons and listen to awareness-raising messages on mitigating the spread of COVID-19 via the UN Mission's Radio Miraya. Thanking UN Mission, Ipaya Mary, a student, said that they need the government and other partners to help girls during this time, as the number of teenage pregnancies has increased in the last 4 months.
I need the government and partners to help us. And our girls are taking pregnant because there is no school. We have taken now 4 months without education and we stay at home. And we are giving thanks to UNMIS and Radio Miraya.
According to Moses Bogari, a child protection assistant, the radio programs will help keep learning ongoing and also help increase awareness on COVID-19.
These radios purposely are issued out so that children will have access to learning between 10 to 11 a.m. and 2 to 3 a.m. weekly. Number two, one of the purposes is to support the state task force on COVID-19 in order to spread prevention messages about coronavirus into the communities.
Eunice Roma Daniel, a Yambio resident, commended the UN mission in South Sudan for providing them with access to information on COVID-19 and how to prevent it.
The issue of coronavirus which has come and all the schools were closed down, so there was no way of our children to go to the school. These radios are going to help them in this time which schools are not working. So we are very happy and we are giving much thanks to UNIMIS for providing us the radio which will help our children and also us, because we will get information about coronavirus and even the prevention for coronavirus.
Community leaders have also expressed their appreciation for the radios and for the effort made by UNIMIS to keep everyone up to date with COVID-19 information. Radio Miraya has been operating since 2006 when it first established by the United Nations mission in South Sudan. For iAfrica TV, Fatmata Fati.
United Nations empowers local communities in South Sudan in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, we end this news bulletin with some sports news and in Uganda. Now, after 6 months of suspension, sport activities are gradually resuming in Uganda as the government eases COVID-19 emergency restrictions. Like many other countries, as public gatherings, including sporting activities, were suspended by the government as part of measures to cope the spread of the virus, as sporting associations worked on modalities to complete their competition. Authorities have also outlined stringent measures or safety guidelines during events. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Preparations are already underway for the possible resumption of sports. In March, the government suspended all sports activities because of coronavirus.
Resumption is it's everyone's wish. The sooner the better. Guys have been looking forward to this for 6 months now. Everyone wants to get back onto the park.
An announcement about the return of sports is expected within days. Exactly how sporting activities will be allowed to resume will be based on guidelines provided by the National Council of Sports.
These venues has to be regulated. We have to know where these competitions are going to take place. The people who are going to be involved will demand the list of the people. The other bit is the places must be sanitized before, during, and after.
Golf is already allowed for leisure purposes, but competitive tournaments are still suspended. The council has also urged sports federations to start planning for the activities without funds, adding that the government will offer financial support. But even with the anticipated resumption, some federations are already running out of time to complete their calendar events. Most sports federations here complete their seasons in November, so there would be need to be adjustments to dates for competitions to be possible. The Local Motorsport Federation could be most affected.
October is largely the cutoff point for us if we are to do any sports, because to prepare for an event, if they open you in October, you need an entire month also to prepare the routes and all that.
The Local Basketball Federation has already set its sights on 2021 following the cancellation of all its basketball activities this year. Boxing and athletics will likely get the nod to resume with next year's Olympics to qualify for. The local football body, FUFA, is already in gear with October set for the start of their new football season.
Sports activities gradually returning in Uganda after many months of suspension due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And with that report in Kampala, Uganda will finally and eventually brings this news bulletin to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, you can log on to our website on africa.tv. But you can also join Sohna Tunkra at 19:30 GMT or 7:30 local time for the Gambia 24 News Bulletin. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and bye for now.